In a distant and a beautiful country, where silence sounds like the most magical music, and the air is sweeter than honey, the magical lake spreads out over the azure surface of its water. Every morning, welcoming the world and each other, the marvelous lotuses open. Each of them is unique and magnificent in its own way. White, pink, red, and even yellow and blue. The magical lake with pleasure reflects them in its water. Once the following story took place on this lake. The most beautiful, immaculate lotus started a conversation with its toddler seeds that had matured in its seed head in the middle of the flower. My dear children, you've all matured, and it's time to start off. A difficult and dangerous journey awaits you, at the end of which each of you can become as beautiful as all the inhabitants of our world. Not all of you will be able to go all the way and return home. Please listen to me very carefully. In each of you there are hidden 3 priceless treasures. If you remember them in a moment of danger, you will be able to pass any test. Those 3 treasures are truth, compassion, forbearance. There is no difficulty in the world which they would not help you to overcome. Please listen even more attentively. The lotus continued to whisper his last instructions to the little seeds. In the end, it said, I believe in every one of you and will await you at home on the magical lake. In the evening, the seed head bent over the water, and all the seeds poured out of it into the waters of the magical lake. One of the seeds was hurrying more than the others. It was amazed. Why did the big lotus say that the journey will be difficult? The water is clear and transparent. Even the sun is visible. The little seed was too inexperienced to know that it is much easier to fall down than to go up. The deeper this seed sank, the darker the water became, until it was more and more mixed with dirt and mud. Oh, 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 shouted the seed. I can barely see anything here. Yet it continued to fall, deeper and deeper into the mud, underwater until finally the falling stopped. The seed closed its eyes with fear. But when, after a while, it finally decided to open first one of its eyes, and then the second one, there was absolutely nothing to see around. It was pitch dark everywhere. Well, where should I go now? How will I return? As if in answer to its question, the seed heard strange champing sounds. Something with a dark and long body approached very quickly. Soon, the seed could see a creature that looked like a huge underwater crocodile, whose body was covered with spines. On the back of the monster, it was written his name, but since it was dark, it was impossible to read it. Little seed, creaked the creature, I've been waiting for you. A new life awaits you, and I am ready to give you a valuable piece of advice. In life, there are all kinds of situations. Sometimes someone can accidentally push you. After all, it is very dark here, or under the influence of a bad mood, and it's almost always bad for the inhabitants of our world. Say offensive words. Do not leave it with impunity. Return to him in double, triple, punch him back, and so that the rest will not do the same to you. The strange creature continued its raspy speech. The frightened seed thought to itself, perhaps that's the way it should be. Otherwise, how can one survive in such a terrible place? Then suddenly the seed remembered, unheard by us, the words of the big lotus, and began to reflect. If I follow the advice of the monster, I will forever remain in this dirty place and will look just as terrible. The monster continued to slowly approach. If the seed accepted at least one of its teachings, then the crocodile could rightfully bite off a piece of it, since in this world, no one gave anything for free, not even advice. In this case, it would be impossible to return and turn into a beautiful flower on the lake. There is a way out of any situation. From any situation, there is a way out. The seed continued repeating to itself. Suddenly, it thought of the treasures. This was the main secret of the big lotus. Always remember that deep inside you there are hidden 3 glittering mighty treasures: truth, compassion, forbearance. At the same moment, the most effective will come to the rescue. Then a miracle happened, and as soon as the seed did not want to agree with the evil advice, the incandescent radiance enveloped it, and compassion, like a bright star, lit up everything around the seed. The seed had time to read the name on the monster's back: evil. A mighty power tossed the baby seed up like on a huge swing. When the radiance gradually dissipated, an entirely different world appeared all around. The world of dense darkness was far below, and around there was the dark grey world. It felt lighter and more breathable here. The seed looked around and noticed, "Yes, I have 2 petals. Hooray! I'm turning into a real flower." But it was too early to rejoice. From the greyness, a pompous, slippery toad was approaching. It cautiously crossed with its huge webbed legs and muttered, "Greetings from our world. The rules here are simple. Everyone for oneself. Do not help anyone. Protect only your own interests, no matter what. To do that, you can even lie. If you've done a bad deed, you can put the blame on others. If you share sweets, do it in the grey world way. 5 for yourself, 1 to the other." The seed stared wide-eyed at the awful-looking creature, whose mouth was uttering strange things. It was so different from what the big lotus had taught them in the magical lake. This time the saving thought of the 3 treasures came faster, because to remain in the grey world, to live by its rules, and to resemble its inhabitants, the seed was definitely determined not to. And at the very instant, the shining Truthfulness star enveloped the seed with a protective veil and pushed it forcefully upwards. The seed only had a chance to read on the toad's back: lies. This time our traveler was in the muddy world, where it joyfully stirred all of its 6 petals. Yes, yes, now the petals had been multiplied by 3 times. After all, with every victory, the seed grew stronger and stronger. Somewhere high above, the rays of the sun were already making their way through. But the tests were not over yet. Far away, a nasty-looking worm appeared, looking like a fat snake. It crawled slowly, closely observing and studying the small lotus, as if it wanted to understand where the little lotus's weak point lied. The worm was more cunning than the inhabitants of the dark and muddy worlds, although weaker. His voice was lulling and insinuating. "You are lucky, little lotus. Now you can be rightly called so. In our world, there is no wind, and it's not so dark. The rules are simple and pleasant. First, if you do not want to do anything, then you do not need to either study or try. Avoid any difficulties. Secondly, we do not need friends. Otherwise, we will have to sometimes endure their bad mood or help them out in difficult situations. Thirdly, if someone says something unpleasant to you, do not hold back. Say all the worst that comes to mind. Of course, it's tempting to sit back and do nothing, but this way one will not learn anything interesting and know nothing. And besides, to always experience the boredom of loneliness is so terrible. No, no, no. I have everything in me to get out of this dull, dim world. The little lotus was right. The 3rd treasure was always ready to help. The Forbearance star quickly grew in its heart until her radiance of a pearly sphere enveloped the baby and slowly began to lift him up. The worm, named laziness, quickly diminished in size until it completely disappeared far below, and the sunlight, on the contrary, became brighter and brighter. The water around was becoming more transparent. The radiance gradually faded, but now the young lotus no longer needed any additional help. He grew stronger, and the stem that supported the flower grew faster and more confidently. The dark, muddy and grey worlds were far below. It was easy and pleasant to pass through the transparent world, since the sun warmed it up and lit it with golden rays. Now the boundary between water and air was transcended. The young lotus, yesterday's seed, appeared above the surface of the magical lake. "Welcome home!" It was the voice of the big lotus, the one whom all this time, most of all, our young traveler wanted to see and whose invisible support he felt. Now you have become strong and beautiful, and you will be able to support others with your strength and delight with the perfection of your beauty. The young lotus looked at his own reflection. What he saw was a magnificent flower with shining, transparent petals. And around the water, more and more new lotuses grew. Everyone went through its own way and evolved in its own unique beauty. If you look closely, they all look with hope at you. Walk well in your journey.